What's up, guys? I'm Jeff from Worldwide Cyclery, and we often talk about the creme de la creme of bicycles on this channel. Creme de la creme. But there's a huge market out there of people in different price points for bikes, and today we're going to talk about one of the more impressive bikes on the market at a price point that we're usually not dabbling in, which is an under $3,000 full suspension bike. Well, if you've poked around in the comments on Pink Bike or YouTube or MTB, any of the forums out there, price points of components and especially complete bicycles is a very controversial topic. No one seems to agree what a budget bike is. If you call this a budget bike at $2,625, a bunch of people will get pissed off at you, and then other people will say, like, that's totally a budget bike. I just bought a Yeti SB165 and the frame was $4,000. So it's kind of all over the place. So if I use a term that's budget or less expensive or super high-end, please don't get offended and leave a comment about it.
You want to hurt me? Go right ahead if it makes you feel any better. I'm an easy target. Yeah, you're right. I talk too much. I also listen too much. I could be a cold-hearted cynic like you, but I don't like to hurt people's feelings.
Let's just talk about what price point you're at and who this bike makes the most sense for. And the reason we wanted to feature GT is because there's a lot of riders out there who have got a hardtail, are falling in love with the sport, really enjoying themselves, and want to step into a full suspension bike, and their budget is $3,000 or under. That's where GT is really shining these days, and this one in particular is the Alloy Comp Sensor. The Sensor series is their trail bike series. They have 3 carbon models going from 3150 to 5250. 2 alloy models from 1900 to 2625. This one, the Alloy Comp, is the 2625, and this is kind of the perfect bike at 2625. GT is a brand that you can get at a ton of local shops all around the country. So typically someone in this price point is going to want to go to a great local shop where you can have a mechanic work on and service your bike for you and help you get fitted, get your suspension dialed, everything else. What's really cool is as the industry has evolved, bikes are coming with better and better stuff at better price points. And what I mean by that, so this bike, $2,625, complete bike, is coming with RockShox suspension, Shimano hydraulic disc brakes, and a dropper post, and an SLX drivetrain, race face cranks. That is insane if you knew what bikes at this price point came with even just 3 years ago, let alone 5 or 10 years ago. 2625 used to get you like a horrendous full suspension bike. Now it gets you something out of the box with good stuff that works really damn well. There's a lot of cool videos on this bike in particular. Trail Features made a great video where he's riding this thing on double black diamond trails. So it's awesome to see that, and to dive in a little bit to the Geo and the build kits, and then later into the on-trail features. So like I just mentioned, how bikes that are coming down in price point are getting better and better parts as the bike industry evolves. You can say the same thing about geometry, and again, I think GT is probably leading the pack here in terms of price point mixed with good build kits and good geo. This bike in specifically, so it's a 29-inch wheeled bike with 130 millimeters of travel front and rear. It does have a flip chip, so you can adjust the head angle, which then does affect a few other things on the bike as well. That's a pretty cool feature that definitely didn't exist in bikes at this price point a long time ago. Head angle on this thing in the low setting is 65.5, and then 66 in the high setting. That is nice and slack and exactly what you would want, and pretty much all the big super bikes out there are running very similar geometry numbers to this alloy bike, which again is less expensive than a lot of the big super bike carbon bikes out there frame only costs. Chainstay 433, reach in a medium is 445, and a large is 470. A lot of the geo on this thing is just dialed in and super modern. It's just what you'd sort of expect out of a good super bike in 2019. If you want to dive into more of the finite details, check below the video description. There's a link to more images and sort of dissection on all the geo numbers. But more or less, if you're in this price point, you're probably not too crazy picky about geo numbers, and you just want to know that you're on a bike that has good, proper, modern angles, and this thing does that for sure. In terms of other important specs to talk about for the frame and the build, you are getting things that are very upgradable and also things that you can transfer onto yet another more expensive bike if you were to upgrade in the future. So it's got a Boost 12x148 rear end and a 15x110 front axle. Those two axles are basically what's on $12,000 carbon super bikes out there. So if you're ever to upgrade your wheel set and then down the road get a different bike, you can transfer those over. So there's a lot less compatibility issues between bikes at this price point now, this bike in particular, and super high-end bikes. And once again, that's something that didn't exist several years ago. A lot of times cheaper bikes or less expensive bikes that weren't, $7,000 to $12,000. They had, different axles, different seat post diameters, different head tubes. So you had instead of a tapered fork, it'd be a straight steer. You just had these like annoying, incompatible component things. Whereas now you don't. This is a $2,600 bike, and it has the same hub spacing, the same forked setup, the same bottom bracket, a lot of the same stuff on here that you're gonna have on some of the best bikes out there. So if you were to upgrade components on this and then get a different bike or a new frame in the future, all that stuff's cross-compatible, which is awesome to see. So now let's dive into how this thing actually works on the trail. Well, to talk about how this thing worked out on the trail, unfortunately, I'm gonna kind of ramble on the same thing I've been saying. How well it works given its price point is amazing, especially compared to what bikes of this price point worked like several years ago or even just the last few years. GT suspension design, their LTS linkage tune suspension. They do, of course, make super high-end bikes as well out of carbon, and this same suspension platform has won EWSs under Martin Mays, who's an incredible enduro and downhill racer that's put in some serious results for GT over the past few years on their World Cup and factory teams. So you do know you're getting into a dialed-in suspension platform. GT's been around for a super long time and gone through a lot of iterations of their suspension platform, and it's just a good proven system. Is there any crazy notable features about it that might be standing out? Not really, but it's a great, awesome working suspension platform that you can trust and works good, especially paired with the good geo and the good part spec that this thing has on it. This particular build does come in at 34 pounds, so it's a little bit heavy, but you'd probably expect that at a bike at this price point, and I would be shocked to see if any other bike in this price point comes in any lighter than this thing. This thing does have, like I said, super amazing parts on it for the price, and that's gonna help it ride really well on the trail. RockShox pretty much dominates suspension that's the non-premium segment, and that's why GT is speccing these things with RockShox stuff front and rear, and it's killing it. Who also crushes the drivetrain segment in the non-premium segment is Shimano, and that's what GT is speccing here. So you have pretty much just a really wise spec on this thing. So someone who put this spec together definitely knows the industry, definitely spent time testing and looking and validating all of this sort of stuff. And everything that we see in terms of who crushes it with the more entry and mid-level drivetrains and entry and mid-level suspension, GT definitely knows what's going on there as well. So overall, this thing kicks ass. One of the things that GT did that they definitely like to talk about is they didn't do internal cable routing, and I think that for a bike at this price point, that's awesome. It makes it a lot easier to work on, and internal cable routing really is totally an aesthetic thing for the most part, so it's not really necessary. And you're in this price point looking at this bike, it definitely is super convenient that you can do that. Yes, you can fit a water bottle in there. All around, thing's absolutely killer for the price.
You're repeating yourself, you know that? You're repeating yourself.
You're repeating yourself. You're repeating yourself.
I know I've said that 100 times, but that's kind of the running story with this thing, and that's why you've seen a lot more GTs sort of just out there in mountain bike media these days, and just probably more on the trails, because they're really doing well at a lot of different price points these days, and especially around that $3,000 price point. So let us know down in the comments, have you guys ridden one of these things? Do you consider a $3,000 full suspension mountain bike budget, or is that totally off base and something you'd argue with people on? Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.
Well, you think what you want about me. I'm not changing. I like me. My kids like me. My friends like me.